Each of us has had mentors and coaches in our life experience that have brought us to awareness around the power of collective impact and the need to share responsibility. I want to invite you to 20 seconds of quiet reflection about one person from your life journey who has taught you about wholeness and interconnection in regards to working with children and youth. Among many mentors for me would be John Ott. Some of you know John, the Center for Collective Wisdom, who taught me years ago to see the whole and embrace the whole. Our reform history in California is rich. It's taught me that sometimes a hard hat is necessary. So I brought my engineering hat today. Deconstructing systems and reconstructing systems is difficult work. And it's not for the faint of heart. The reform effort has also taught me that money alone is not the answer. California has proven that many times over. Better and more collaboration is insufficient, necessary but insufficient to sustain lasting impact. There's a difference between cooperating, collaborating, and integrating, and we'll explore that when we get into shared leadership. While youth and parent voices and advocacy have been present and assertive, public systems have not fully endowed authentic shared governance with those people with lived experience. Authority is often fixed, power is adaptable and shareable. Very few of you are old enough to remember when you first got a PC, you had to run a manual defrag operation. We are defragmenting our delivery system for children and youth in California. That's why the hat is sometimes necessary. In order to defragment the system, 3 essential intentions are necessary. You saw Stephanie mention these a little bit. I'm just going to reconnect you to the fact that in government, we have often done the vision piece well. We throw money at a problem, we sing Kumbaya and slap ourselves on the back for doing something well or effective, without investigating the necessity and understanding the necessity of the functions that must be blended together and the structure to hold those functions over time. You have to do all 3 interdependently and sustainably, or you don't get change, which is why we've been stuck in cycles of reform in California, not having seen the successes that we want to see. And yet there are successes present. I would pause and reflect as we consider the depth of the change curve ahead of us that in 1997, we had 119,000 child welfare cases in California. Today, we have under 50,000. We have effectively reduced the number of youth in correction systems in California by 65%. In the last 5 years, we've closed half the juvenile detention facilities in California. And today, those that remain all have mental health services available on site. We are making remarkable progress in California. And so while we have a mountain still to climb, we are inspired to the hope of that mountain because of the great work that has come before us. We know that shared leadership pays dividends. On the screen is a brief synopsis of 40 years of research that folks have done nationally on integrated whole child, whole student services. And note these reform outcomes and recognize that these were not accomplished with more money alone. These were accomplished by systems coming together. In the collective, we maximize our impact. And California is filled with examples just like this. Some of you are in the room today. In Santa Clara County, underneath the system of care work, parents and youth with lived expertise are sharing the planning and decision-making and facilitating for their system of care leadership teams. In Sacramento, they recently introduced the Wilton Rancheria Tribal Council member as a member of their System of Care Executive Advisory Committee. In Placer County, their interagency placement committee function has for more than 15 years been facilitated by a mom with lived experience, brokering power to the systems themselves. In Shasta County, where there are parents and youth who come together on a monthly basis with living experience to welcome families into the child welfare system and to partner with the county to work effectively to help families be whole and together. We are making great progress. love that Stephanie oriented us to integrate a core practice model. If you're not familiar with this all-county behavioral health information notice is a remarkable outcome. Notice the number of logos at the top of this all-county communication. In my nearly 40 years, I've never seen this happen before. 7 different organizations co-authored the same piece of communication, integrating one set of guidance for all child and family serving organizations in California. This is the book of scripture that tells us what effective teaming, engagement, and care delivery mean in California going forward. It's research-based, evidence-informed. It is our practice guide. You'll hear more about that as we go. Inside that core practice model are behaviors that help us connect to the relational tissue of oneness and wholeness, so that when as leaders we find ourselves in challenging environments, we practice this way, these kind of behaviors, to cut through the bureaucracy, the rules, the ego that keeps us often separated. There is heavy work to build a system. It's not easy. I'm going to close with not that video, I'll save that for another moment, but with a little piece of poetry. Sometimes in my quieter moments, I have an opportunity to reflect, and a gift given me by my long departed grandfather for poetry. This is Rivers and Rescuers. There is a river, swift, wide, endless, and sure. It gives life in so many ways. It also takes. Rushing and winding, then falling, so many young people and families taken. Over the edge they go, one child, two, and another, each family's loss amplified in the grief of those who seek to help. At times, it seems a flood of young lives lies in peril. Myriad rescuers line the banks, judges, social workers, doctors, pastors, teachers, cops, all desperate to save. Ropes and buoys, life preservers fly into the raging torrent, yet still over the edge they go. Fewer now than before at times, but one is one too many. One child, any child lost in the undercurrent, is our loss. And then, from the distant sideline, a parent steps, confident with life's experience. She wades deep into the rushing tumult. She's felt its pull, fought its undercurrent before. The deafening rush is silent to her ears. The icy rage is no match for her. She sees only the flailing young and his own mother in distress. And clasping hands with dry land standers, she reaches and holds the heart of the submerged for just a time until the one no longer drowning know that they are not alone, and firm earth again is underfoot. Thank you, and Saran.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much, Richard. I would like to start off with a question. How many of you in this room, raise of hand, have made assumptions before? Yes, we all have. In positive ways about our work, our environment, and so on. To some extent, that's completely normal. However, for many people, assumptions can lead to stigma, just like how it did for me. Growing up as a student with disabilities, my journey was trauma. I remember the many times I would sit in a room called the resource room, where students with disabilities would get resources and access. I remember I would sit at a table with students with special needs who would receive academic support to be successful. I would feel upset and ask myself, why am I here and not outside with peers who are engaging in activities with my peers? I asked, what about us? I was segregated as a special needs student from everyone else. I was often told, you have to be here because you are a student with special needs and you are different is just different. That assumption created stigma, not just for me, but for all special needs students. This message was clear that because we are different, treated differently, we have to be separated from our peers, excluded from activities and opportunities. Moreover, I faced years of hurtful comments from educators and my peers. Often said, autistic people are never successful. Why do you talk like that? People like you will always get bad grades. Autistic people always cause problems. I remember someone told me I would kill myself if I was autistic like you. There were times when I would try to stand up for myself and say, please stop it, only to have mental breakdowns in classrooms. Instead of getting support or getting met with understanding, I was labeled as emotionally disturbed on IEP papers and told as I was like an instigator. I was told, you're crying disrupts the classroom. I find it hard to believe that this student would say such thing to you. You must apologize now. I was left distraught as educators refused to address the root issues. Instead, they targeted me, blaming me for crying or standing up for myself, when they should have been asking, what was the cause? Why were you crying? How can I help you? This carried over to my parents, who struggled to advocate for me because they didn't speak English fluently. They were often told, she caused it, leaving my parents to feel voiceless. There were times when I felt completely silenced, when labels like emotionally disturbed continued to hang over me. The assumptions kept spreading, the stigma I faced only grew stronger. I felt hopeless and often looking at myself in the mirror with tears streaming down from school asking, why do I have a disability? Why can't I be seen or heard? I couldn't forget what I've been through. The hardest part wasn't just about what I went through, it was about seeing it actually happen in my own school, in my own communities. Kids who were shut away from support and labeled like me. Enough was enough. Then I became the driving force behind my passion to become a leader, both for myself and others. I became one of the first Mongolian American student commissioners for the California's History with Disability to serve on California's Department of Education Advisor Commission Special Education. In this role, I wholeheartedly represent over 850,000 students with disabilities across California. My mission was clear: to share my lived experiences, break down the barriers, and stop stigma from creating assumptions about people with disabilities in California. One of the most significant pieces I worked on was being involved in supporting the bill, Assembly Bill 273, which sought to change the label emotional disturbance to emotional disability. This bill meant the world to me. As labeled been applied to me, creating stigma that's shaping the way that I saw myself. I shared my story, voted to support the change because I didn't want other youth to go through what I went through. A bill later passed by our own Governor Newsom this summer. 3 months ago, I was honored to be recognized as one of the top 30 disability leaders in this world. I've done the work I've done as a student commissioner, as a mentor for Mongolian American students in California, but also in my schools. It didn't end here. I realized that the stigma created assumptions wasn't just an issue in California. It was happening to millions of youth around the nation. So now I was selected as one of the 6 national fellows for the Center for Advancing Employment Policy for the U.S. Department of Labor under ODEP, where I work with officials for the next 5 years, 5 states, helping them improve transition from education to employment. Because we know that youth with disabilities across the nation don't get enough jobs, and that is a low percentage. Most importantly, but working with educators and officials to stop assuming what is best for youth, instead including our voices. Now I want to share with you something maybe you all have seen before. The Rogers Ladder participation, which illustrates the levels of youth involvement from passive recipients' decisions to actively driving those decisions. I ask you to take a moment to reflect on this ladder, to use it to guide your initiatives. Consider these questions. Think about where your county and your organization, or even you or personally might fall on this ladder. Are youth simply being heard, or are they fully driving decisions that affect their lives? Are we giving them the tools and platforms to lead, or are we assuming what's best for them without their voices at the table? This is not just about where we are, it's about where we can go from here. We have the ability to move beyond the labels, beyond the assumptions, to drive the change forward, to break the barriers. Now, so I challenge you today, don't just reflect where your organization or where you're at on this ladder. Think about how you are going to get youth with disabilities into those conversations, not just participate, but them to lead those decisions. Because we are not others. We are a part of the same community, the same study, in the same country. Take this moment as a step toward to change, a step towards inclusion, a step towards where assumptions are replaced by understanding and stigma is replaced with empathy. And this is what we do, and this is called breaking barriers. Thank you.
Thank you, Saran. Really appreciate that. To share leadership, it's imperative to establish a mindset and culture of oneness and wholeness.